Alright, so we're going to take what we know now. We're going to try and solve a few problems. Just see if we understand the definitions of our 6 trig functions and can use what we know. So the terminal side of theta contains the point -5, comma, -8. Find the value of all 6 trig functions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a picture. Okay, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, look, -5, -8 means I'm going to go over 5. I'm going to go down 8. And my triangle looks something like that. Now, in reality, theta comes from here and goes all the way over there. Okay, that's theta. But we know reference angles exist, and so we're actually allowed to use this angle. Let me change colors here. We're actually allowed to use this angle right here, and that's theta prime. So we're actually allowed to use the reference angle for this, which means we have a right triangle and everything works. The only difference is going to be the sign of our answers, S-I-G-N. So, now if you draw the correct picture, you don't have to keep up with what quadrant you're in, or you can make sure you're right by knowing what quadrant you're in. So we're in quadrant 3. What that tells me is I already know sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. I already know what the signs, whether they should be positive or negative. I already know that answer. So when I get the right answer, I'm going to feel pretty good about it. So here we go. First things first, I've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I've got -5 squared plus -8 squared equals c squared. Now, that's going to give me 25. That's going to give me 64. And that's equal to c squared. All right. And 25 and 64 add up to 89. Cool. And you are going to make sure that 89, when you take the square root of it, does not reduce. Make sure it does not reduce. In my case, it does not. And so we get c equals root 89. So now, theta prime is here. That makes this guy here the opposite. That makes this one the adjacent. And you know the hypotenuse. Well, if you know the opposite, the adjacent, and the hypotenuse, you can start solving these problems. So we're going to start with sine of theta. Sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse, which is going to be equal to what? -8 over root 89, which is equal to -8 root 89 over 89. Didn't say it'd be a pretty number, just said it works. Cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse, which in my case is -5 over root 89. And then we'll rationalize that, and that's going to give us -5 root 89 over 89. Okay, boom, boom, boom. All right. Tangent of theta, opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. Well, opposite's -8, adjacent's -5. Negative over negative makes a positive. So I get what? 8 over 5. Opposite over adjacent. Boom, boom, boom. Now, you have two options for your next functions. You can say that cosecant is the reciprocal of sine and flip one of these answers. Or you can say cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. I don't really care which one you do. Since I've already done the flipping method, I'm going to use the definition method on this one. So I'm going to say cosecant of theta is hypotenuse over opposite. Well, that's going to be root 89 over what? -8. Stick that negative out front. secant of theta is going to be hypotenuse over adjacent, which is going to be what? Root 89 over -5. And I'll stick that negative out front. And then our last one, cotangent, right? Tangent's opposite over adjacent, so that makes cotangent adjacent over opposite. Adjacent over opposite. So in my case, what? This over that. So -5 over -8, which is just 5/8. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Now, what quadrant are we in? We are in quadrant 3. All students take. What does that mean? Tangent should be positive. And if you flip a positive number, you get positive number. And sine and cosine should be negative. And if you flip negative numbers, you get negative numbers. Okay, I feel really good about all of these. Okay, so let's try one more. Given that tangent of theta is -12 over 5 and sine of theta is greater than 0, find the value of all 6 trig functions. Now, what did they just tell me? They told me that tangent is positive and sine of theta is positive. Excuse me, negative. My goodness. Told me tangent is negative and sine is positive. Okay, well, sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, and tangent's negative in quadrants 2 and 4. So where is theta? Theta is in quadrant 2. So I'm going to draw a picture. And make sure your picture is in quadrant 2. So here we go, quadrant 2. Ta-da! And what have we got? Well, tangent is defined as what? Opposite over adjacent. It means the opposite has to be 12, and the adjacent has to be 5. Here's the big deal. Because that negative is up here with that 12, people love to put it right here. That is incorrect because this thing is pointing in what direction? The positive y direction. And this one's pointing in what direction? The negative x direction. So the negative actually goes on your 5. So make sure you understand the geometry of these problems, because if you set them up wrong, nothing works. So then what? I've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, that's going to be 12 squared plus -5 squared equals c squared. Well, that's 144, and that's 25, and that's 169, and so c is equal to 13, and that's going to go on my drawing because I think it might be helpful. 13. Okay, cool. Now what? Now I need to find sine of theta, cosine of theta, tangent of theta, all 6 trig functions. Okay, cool. So sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse, which in my case, here's theta prime. Opposite is 12, hypotenuse is 13. 12 over 13. Done. Cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. Cool. Adjacent over hypotenuse, -5 over 13. And by the way, we think we're in quadrant 2, right? Sine is positive. Tangent and cosine should be negative. Okay, so, all right, cool. Don't miss this one. I asked for all 6. What is tangent of theta? Don't miss that one. I literally gave it to you in the problem. Cool. What is cosecant of theta? Well, I'm going to cheat this time. Cosecant of theta is 1 over sine theta, which means what? Take that answer and flip it. 13 over 12. And if sine is positive, flip a positive number, you get a positive number. secant of theta is 1 over cosine of theta. 1 over cosine of theta basically says take this and flip it. So flip that. What do you get? Negative 13 over 5. And again, if you flip a negative number, you get a negative number. Okay. And then the last one is cotangent of theta. Cotangent of theta is 1 over tangent of theta. And 1 over tangent of theta means take that answer and flip it. So what do you get? Negative 5 over 12. Now, one last aside before I move on. There is one last identity you desperately need to know, and that is that tangent of theta is equal to sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. And the way we come up with this one is we take our definitions. Opposite over hypotenuse divided by adjacent over hypotenuse equals opposite over adjacent. The hypotenuses cancel out. Okay. Instead of using this identity here, instead of saying, okay, cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite, right? Adjacent over opposite, I could use this identity. And that's going to actually give me 12 over 13, that's sine of theta, divided by, make sure you see this, guys, sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. So divided by negative 5 over 13. How do we divide with fractions? We keep change flips. So 12 over 13 times 13 over negative 5. The 13s cancel, and what do you get? You get negative 12 over 5. Okay? Kind of just a fun way to check your work. And the other side to this is that cotangent of theta is equal to cosine over sine. Why? Because it's the reciprocal of tangent. Well, the reciprocal of that identity is that identity. And so the same thing, what do you get? You get cosine, negative 5 over 13, divided by sine, 12 over 13, is equal to 5 over 13 times 13 over 12. The 13s cancel and you get negative 5 over 12. Okay, for cotangent. So anyway, another way to come up with these. All right, guys, so that's what you need to know. That is 4.4. Get your homework done, get your out of class assignment done, and I'll see you on Monday.